The year was 1968, and Ford had a problem. Not because the Mustang was slow, not because people weren't buying them. The problem was that America's muscle car war had turned into an arms race, and Ford was suddenly losing ground. Chevrolet had the 396 and the brutal 427, Plymouth and Dodge were unleashing Hemi-powered monsters. Pontiac had the GTO. Oldsmobile had the 442. Every weekend, drag strips across America became battlefields, and the Mustang, the car that had started a revolution in 1964, was beginning to look vulnerable. The original pony car formula was brilliant. Stylish design, affordable price, decent performance. But decent wasn't cutting it anymore. Because while Ford was selling style and sophistication, the competition was selling raw violence. Street racers knew the truth. A stock Mustang GT with a 390 was quick, but quick wasn't enough when a Hemi Charger pulled up next to you. Quick didn't matter when a 427 Corvette erased you from existence. The enthusiast magazines were brutal. Every comparison test seemed to highlight the same problem. The Mustang looked fantastic. It handled reasonably well, but in straight-line acceleration, it was getting embarrassed. Ford's executives watched their competitors dominate magazine covers. They watched rival brands claim victory after victory at drag strips. And they knew something had to change, fast. Then Ford released an engine so deceptively simple, so brutally effective, that it transformed the Mustang from a sporty pony car into something far more dangerous. The engine was called the 428 Cobra Jet. And what happened next changed Mustang history forever. Most people know the Cobra Jet as one of the greatest muscle car engines ever built. But what almost nobody knows is that it was never supposed to exist. The real story begins with panic. By the late 1960s, horsepower numbers were becoming weapons. Manufacturers weren't just selling cars anymore, they were selling bragging rights. Every advertisement promised more power. Every magazine tested quarter-mile times. Every drag strip became a proving ground. And teenagers memorized specs like baseball statistics. They knew displacement numbers, they knew compression ratios. They knew exactly which engine could beat which. The parking lot at any American high school became a showroom. Reputations were built on what you drove and destroyed by what beat you. Ford had plenty of engines. The legendary 427 FE had dominated NASCAR and endurance racing. The 390 was a strong street performer. The 428 Police Interceptor offered massive torque, but there was a problem. Actually, several problems. The race-bred 427 was expensive, very expensive. Its cross-bolted mains, special blocks, and exotic components made production costly. Building thousands of them for regular Mustangs simply wasn't practical. The accountants made that clear. Sure, the 427 could be ordered in a Mustang, but the cost was astronomical. Most buyers couldn't afford it, and those who could often chose other brands entirely. Meanwhile, Chrysler's 426 Hemi was terrorizing drag strips across America. Plymouth was stuffing them into Roadrunners. Dodge was dropping them into Chargers and Super Bs. And every weekend, those cars were humiliating everything Ford had. The pressure was mounting. Dealerships were complaining. Salesmen needed ammunition. They needed a car that could fight back. Ford needed something powerful, something cheap, something that could be built quickly, and most importantly, something that could win. That's when a small group of engineers started looking at the humble 428. At first glance, it wasn't particularly exciting. The 428 FE used a 4.13-inch bore and a 3.98-inch stroke, creating 428 cubic inches of displacement. The long stroke produced massive torque, but it wasn't considered a high RPM race engine. Officially, the 428 Police Interceptor produced around 360 horsepower, respectable, but not enough. Not nearly enough to scare a Hemi, not enough to intimidate a 427 Chevelle. The engineers knew there was hidden potential buried inside the block. They had seen dyno results that didn't match official ratings. They knew the 428's architecture was fundamentally sound, overbuilt even. The question was simple: how much? How much power could they extract without spending a fortune? How much could they achieve by simply letting the engine breathe? And then the real experimentation began. Late nights in the engineering department, dyno sessions that stretched until dawn, part swapping, testing, measuring, adjusting. Instead of designing an entirely new engine, Ford's engineers raided the parts bin. They borrowed components from the legendary 427. It was brilliant economics. The parts already existed. The tooling was already paid for. The suppliers were already qualified. All they needed to do was adapt them. The engine received larger intake and exhaust passages, stronger connecting rods, improved breathing, a functional ram air induction system, and one of the biggest secrets of all, they installed heads derived from the 427's low riser design. Suddenly, airflow increased dramatically. The engine could breathe, really breathe. Air flowed through passages that had been strangled before. Exhaust gases escaped efficiently instead of creating back pressure. The long-stroke 428 began producing power nobody expected. Early dyno results shocked even the engineers. The numbers kept climbing. Higher, higher still. Someone reportedly muttered, "We might have a problem," but it wasn't a problem. It was a solution. The compression ratio sat around 10.61. Street-friendly by muscle car standards. You could still run pump gas. You could still drive it daily, yet output exploded. Officially, Ford claimed the engine made 335 horsepower at 5,200 revolutions per minute and 440 lb-ft of torque at 3,400 revolutions per minute. Those numbers looked surprisingly conservative, especially compared to the competition. Chevrolet was advertising 425 horsepower. Chrysler claimed 425 for the Hemi. Pontiac was boasting about 370 horsepower. Ford's 335 looked almost modest, almost weak, because they were wildly conservative. Magazine testers immediately became suspicious. Cars equipped with the Cobra Jet were destroying competitors that supposedly had more horsepower. Road tests told a different story than the spec sheets. Stopwatches don't lie. Something didn't add up. Most historians today believe actual output was somewhere between 410 and 430 horsepower. Some race-prepped examples pushed even higher. A few private dyno sessions suggested numbers approaching 450 horsepower. Ford wasn't lying, but they certainly weren't telling the whole truth, and there was a reason for that. Insurance companies. Horsepower ratings had become political. The insurance industry was watching the muscle car wars with growing alarm. Accident rates were climbing, teenagers were crashing high-powered cars. Premiums were being calculated based on advertised horsepower. The higher the advertised power, the higher the insurance premiums, sometimes dramatically higher. A young buyer might afford the car payment, but the insurance could price them out completely. Ford understood that selling a 430 horsepower Mustang could scare buyers away, or more accurately, scare their insurance agents away. Selling a 335 horsepower Mustang that secretly ran like a 430 horsepower car, that was genius, pure genius. Buyers got the performance they wanted. Insurance companies saw reasonable numbers on paper, and Ford sold more cars. Everybody won, except the competition. But before the Cobra Jet could become a legend, it needed to prove itself. And that proof would come at the drag strip. In April 1968, Ford unveiled the Cobra Jet Mustang at the NHRA Winter Nationals. The timing wasn't accidental. The company wanted maximum publicity, maximum exposure. The NHRA Winter Nationals in Pomona, California was one of the biggest events in drag racing. Thousands of spectators, magazine photographers everywhere, television cameras rolling. What happened shocked everyone. Driver Al Jonisch piloted a Cobra Jet Mustang to victory in Superstock competition. The car immediately began setting records. Competitors watched in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Mustang wasn't just winning, it was dominating, crushing the competition, making cars with higher advertised horsepower look slow. Quarter-mile times dropped into the low 13-second range straight from the factory. With tuning and traction improvements, many cars dipped into the 12S. Some exceptional examples even touched the 11S. In 1968, that was serious performance, especially from a car that could be driven to work on Monday. a car with a heater, a car with a radio, a car that didn't need race fuel. The Cobra Jet's secret wasn't peak horsepower, it was torque, mountains of torque. At barely above idle speed, the engine pulled like a freight train. Other engines needed RPM to wake up. The Cobra Jet hit hard immediately. Drivers described the sensation as being hit from behind, like someone rear-ended you with a truck. The 440 lb-ft rating was enormous for the era. In reality, many believed actual torque exceeded 450 lb, possibly 470 lb. That twisting force could overwhelm tires instantly. Even modern radials struggled. The bias-ply tires of 1968 had no chance. Mash the throttle. The rear tires vanished into smoke. Hit second gear. More smoke. Third gear. Still spinning. And people loved it. Absolutely loved it. Because that's what muscle cars were supposed to do. They were supposed to be excessive, unreasonable, outrageous, but there was a problem. The engine's incredible torque exposed weaknesses everywhere else. Ford had built an engine so powerful it was breaking the car around it. Drive shafts failed, they twisted like pretzels. Clutches exploded, literally disintegrated. Rear axles surrendered, gears shattered, transmission components cracked under repeated abuse. U-joints became consumable items. One mechanic reportedly joked, "The engine wasn't breaking, everything attached to it was," and he wasn't exaggerating. Ford quickly reinforced supporting components. Heavy-duty driveline parts became essential. Stronger axles, beefier transmissions, reinforced drive shafts, because the Cobra Jet wasn't simply powerful, it was violent, brutal, unforgiving. And then the horsepower war escalated again. By 1969, Ford introduced the Super Cobra Jet. This version pushed the formula even further. Engineers added a stronger rotating assembly, special connecting rods, improved balancing, an engine oil cooler, the famous drag pack option. Rear axle ratios such as 3.91 and 4.30 gears transformed acceleration. The engine could pull those gears hard. The Super Cobra Jet wasn't designed for comfort. It wasn't designed for fuel economy. It wasn't designed for cruising. It was designed for war. Cars equipped with the drag pack became feared at drag strips nationwide. Magazine road tests recorded quarter-mile times around 13.1 seconds at over 107 miles per hour. Under ideal conditions, skilled drivers pushed even faster. And remember, these were factory cars that could be ordered from a dealership, cars carrying license plates, cars driven on public roads. The competition took notice. Chevrolet's big block Camaros, Plymouth Roadrunners, Dodge Super Bs, Pontiac GTOs, everyone suddenly had a new threat to worry about. The Mustang had become a monster. But the real brilliance of the Cobra Jet wasn't speed, it was economics. The legendary 427 FE was an engineering masterpiece, yet it was expensive and difficult to produce. The machining was complex, the tolerances were tight, the reject rate was high. The Cobra Jet achieved nearly the same real-world performance at a fraction of the cost. Ford could build more of them, sell more of them, and dominate more showrooms. The strategy worked perfectly. Thousands of buyers flocked to dealerships. The Mustang's reputation grew stronger than ever. Every street race story seemed to include a Cobra Jet. Every drag strip had one, usually several, and every competitor respected them, even if they hated them, especially if they hated them. Then came one of the most fascinating aspects of the Cobra Jet story. Ford's official horsepower rating remained stubbornly low. For years, enthusiasts debated the true figure. Arguments broke out, friendships ended. Engine builders who later dyno-tested original examples often found outputs well above factory claims. Some untouched engines produced over 400 horsepower. Others exceeded expectations entirely. One veteran Ford tuner famously remarked, "Nobody who drove one believed 335 horsepower for a second." And he wasn't wrong. The numbers on paper didn't match reality. The stopwatch told the truth. Physics doesn't lie. A 500-pound car doesn't run 13 flat quarters on 335 horsepower. Not even close. Yet just as the Cobra Jet reached legendary status, the world began changing. Fast. The golden age of muscle cars was ending. Insurance premiums skyrocketed. Young buyers were being priced out. Government regulations tightened. Emission standards became stricter every year. High-compression engines suddenly faced an uncertain future. The Clean Air Act and changing fuel requirements hit manufacturers hard. Lead was being phased out of gasoline. Compression ratios had to drop. Compression ratios dropped. Horsepower ratings shrank. The era of giant, tire-shredding V8s began fading away. By the early 1970s, the muscle car landscape looked completely different. The Cobra Jet survived briefly in various forms, but the magic was disappearing. The environment that created engines like the Cobra Jet no longer existed. The party was over. And yet, the legend never died. Collectors recognized its significance. Enthusiasts hunted original cars relentlessly. Auction prices climbed, then climbed again. Barn finds became treasures. Restoration projects multiplied. Today, genuine Cobra Jet Mustangs command enormous money. Rare examples regularly sell for six figures. Special versions can reach far beyond that. Well-documented Super Cobra Jets with drag pack options can exceed $500,000. Because collectors understand something important. The Cobra Jet wasn't just another engine. It represented a unique moment in American automotive history. A moment when engineers found a loophole. A moment when creativity defeated bureaucracy. A moment when a supposedly ordinary engine embarrassed far more exotic machines. Even modern performance cars struggle to replicate the raw personality of a Cobra Jet Mustang. Modern engines are faster, much faster, more efficient, more sophisticated, more reliable, but they don't feel the same. They're clinical, precise, controlled. The Cobra Jet was unapologetic. It wasn't trying to save fuel. It wasn't trying to reduce emissions. It wasn't trying to please regulators. It had one mission: make the Mustang terrifyingly fast. And it succeeded, spectacularly. More than half a century later, enthusiasts still talk about it, still race it, still chase it, still dream about it. Because deep down, the Cobra Jet represents something bigger than horsepower. It represents an era when engineers were allowed to build monsters, when corporate lawyers didn't strangle every decision, when the goal was simple: go fast. The 428 Cobra Jet didn't just make the Mustang faster, it transformed the car's identity. With its 4.13-inch bore, 3.98-inch stroke, massive torque, hidden horsepower, and drag strip dominance, it turned Ford's pony car into one of the most feared muscle machines America had ever seen. And that's why the legend refuses to die, because some engines win races, some engines sell cars, but the 428 Cobra Jet did something rarer. It created a myth that still lives, still breathes, still roars. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments what legendary engine you'd like to see next. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the machines, rivalries, and engineering battles that shaped automotive history.